Welcome to class 10th English, chapter 3, two stories about flight, and we have a second story in this video. The name of the story is The Black Aeroplane and it is written by Frederick. Okay, let's have an introduction to the story. The story revolves around a mystery that who was a pilot. This is the complete story. Okay, the main center part of the story is that who was the another pilot in that particular plane which guided the pilot. Okay, now about the author. Who is the author of the story? Frederick was born on August 25, 1938 at Kent, England. He was an English author and journalist. He was also an author for best-selling thriller novels. Before the journalist, he served in Royal Air Force. Okay, and most important, he was appointed a commander on the Order of the British Empire. This was the introduction to the author. Now let's have a summary of the story. Now story is that the storyteller was on the flight. Here the storyteller, that means that particular writer named as a Frederick was in the story and he was a pilot there, and he is narrating that particular incident, what was happened on that particular night. Okay, now let's start the summary. The storyteller was on his flight going to England, hoping to have a good English breakfast with his family. That means he is not in the England, he is out of his country and he is away from his family member. And as you all know that if we are away from our family, we are really missing them, especially the food, because ghar ka khana hota hai. Okay, now back to the story. Now what happened? There was an incident, but during his flight, he saw a great storm clouds ahead of him. And the clouds look like mountains, and it becomes quite risky for a pilot to take a plane through that particular storm or that particular situation. But you know, the dream is dream. So he was on that particular note that he wanted to fulfill his dream. What was his dream? His dream was to have a breakfast with his family at England. Okay, now what happened? He risked entering in the clouds and everything turned black. You see that during the rainy season, when there is a black clouds covering the sun, it becomes very dark. Okay, and it was happening there in above of the sky. He is unable to see all his direction instruments because all his direction instruments stopped working, stopped functioning, and he lost control of the plane. And it becomes a very dangerous, frightening situation for a pilot that he is the captain. Okay, he is the leader of that particular plane and he have to save the life of other people who are on the plane. Okay, there is a very less and most important that it is quite dangerous that the amount of the fuel in the tank of the plane is very, very less. And you know, when in this situation, the person is unable to adjust his mind at a balanced manner. Okay, because there are lots of negative things which are approaching towards you. Suddenly, you know, when you are hoping for the best, then there is a best for you. Okay, suddenly he sees another plane flying next to him through the storm. That situation was happening. He sees a ray of hope that another plane is approaching towards him. And most important thing is that now he feels that now that particular plane will guide me or help me. You know, कहते हैं ना कि एक से भले दो. If you both are very डरपोक किस्म के person, okay, and when two डरपोक किस्म के person come together, then you both will give a strength to each other in that particular situation. Whether you are able to conquer that or not, that is another thing. But you start supporting each other and you go ahead and ahead and ahead. And now this plane is a ray of hope for the pilot. And who is the pilot? Pilot is the narrator or story writer, and the name is Frederick. The pilot followed the strange aeroplane and turned his plane to the north. That means he was in another direction except the north. In any direction except the north. He followed the instruction, or he followed the plane who was just flying towards the north. So he turned his plane and started following him. And also fear that what happened if the fuel goes exhausted. What will happen? He is the responsible person on the flight. All are depending on him and his decisions. The anonymous flight pilot. Now that particular pilot of another flight guided him that how he can come out of that particular situation. And when he came out of that particular situation, he was unable to see that plane, okay, and it becomes disappear like a magic. After landing, the pilot went to receptionist and asked about that particular unknown plane, okay, but what the reply was there, that particular pilot, which pilot? The narrator wasn't shocked, because the reply was that on the radar there was no any other plane that they can found. It was only you there. It was only you and only you on the radar. No another plane they saw on the radar. For a moment, he was not able to understand exactly what has happened. What was happened? Many questions in his mind remains unsolved about the mysteries of that black aeroplane. Dear, this was the complete story of that black aeroplane written by Frederick. Now time for the conclusion. This story teaches us that we should not risk the lives of others to fulfill our dreams. This was the complete explanation of the story. If you haven't subscribed to our channel, please do subscribe